Hello, everybody, and welcome to Weird the Game. I'm Michael, and that's Luke. And we are going to run through power rankings now that we've reached week 2 and we've seen a few things in the league already. I know that my answers to this would have been crazily different last week than they are this week. But we'll be jumping through that with our good friend, Tier Maker, here to help us categorize teams into different brackets as we go. We're going to go division by division, and Luke is going to lead off with the AFC North and help us figure out where these belong in our categories here. All right, with that, Luke, I don't know, I assume you're starting with the old Cincinnati?
Yeah, I mean, let's just start with one of the most interesting teams right off the bat. Even with the loss of Joe Burrow, there's so much talent on that team, particularly weapons and such, that I do think Jake Browning will have them at least in the middle. It's weird because that's where Joe Burrow had him last year, but their defense has clearly gotten a bit better. Is it good enough? I don't think so. I think that they're one of these two. I'll give them potential wild card in the hopes that maybe Burrow can come back in time and they'll push, they may even try to push his timeline a little bit. And so he can come back if they're 6-7 most of the way through the season, or 7-7, something like that. And then maybe they'll still have a shot and he can get back. Chances are they're this. I'm going to try to be optimistic just because I think Joe Burrow needs a little optimism right now. For Cleveland, I'm sorry. It's almost we got to rename this number one pick all but certain. Joe Flacco seems to have lost whatever little bit of magic he had left. Just from what I've seen, there's just not much left in that arm. Prove me wrong, Joe. I still think the defense is amazing, and it will probably keep them away from the actual number one overall pick, but I mean, only just. So they will be in contention for that. Pittsburgh's been a little bit confusing because they played so well against the Jets, I felt like, in week 1. But then week 2, Seattle, who again has a great defense, really gave them a hard time. I'd probably put them more like this, if I'm being completely honest, meaning left being slightly better. They have more likelihood of making the playoffs, but now Pittsburgh is staring at a problem of I'm not sure that they have the defense. It's weird. This is Pittsburgh, and I don't trust their defense.
It's so weird, yeah.
And then that is one of the worst special teams play. I'm guessing that'll be the worst special teams play we have maybe all year by old. I think it was Caleb Johnson. Poor guy. I hope he's learned and he just moved on. I am gonna move them up. Beginning of the year, I would have had Baltimore as Super Bowl favorites. Their defense is also somewhat concerning right now. I think they'll pull it together. Last year, they pulled it together at the second half of the season, and they were the best defense in the NFL. But again, kind of starting out, they seem kind of vulnerable there. So again, if I was projecting how I think things are going to go toward the end of the season, I'd probably move them up here. But for now, they haven't shown me. So I think they're Super Bowl contenders because their offense is absolutely spectacular, but their defense is underwhelming at the moment. So any changes you'd make here for AFC North? Anything that's like, there ain't no way or anything like that?
No, nothing that falls in no, that's impossible. But the Bengals are in like you already pointed out, they're in such an odd position there where they could be right there. They could have fallen, a ways. It's just hard to tell for a minute. Yeah, but no, I would keep them there because that's where I think they should be. They should be if they were even remotely healthy. So hopefully they'll be able to pull through. But no, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, so take me to the AFC East. This one's got some fun ones. I feel like it's got one really obvious one, but take me to the AFC East and tell me what's going on there.
Yeah, AFC East, you already pointed out why I'll put this Buffalo, right? And that's just partly because, first off, they've already played each other. And I think putting them up as favorites to me makes some level of sense. Obviously, we're not going to have a lot of teams up here, but I think, right now, Josh's willingness to just charge over people and get wins is never been better. I think that they're in a good spot. They're charging right through. I don't see that changing anytime soon. The Patriots, on another hand, are a very interesting team. I think Drake May has continued to evolve. Stevenson looks like he's ready to just put the team on his back and carry them however far he can, which is a neat I don't know that it's different per se, but it just seems like he's in a different gear. And so I'm excited to see where they go. I still see them as a missing the playoffs kind of group, which I don't think is a bad thing. I actually think that's them heading in a really positive direction overall, and their defense is hung in there well. So I think if their offense can take a little bit more of a step, I could see them even moving up towards that whole wild card flirtation area. So we'll see. And there's the Jets. The Jets remain an ongoing quandary. I kind of expected Fields to come in and I guess play into their strengths or create new strengths for them. And it seems to have not exactly been how that's played out. I'm putting them in the mediocre at best group. You don't want to overlook them. They have talent, but at the same time, I don't know that I would be fearing them at the moment. So they've got some things to work out. And then there's Miami, who I don't even know what all to say. The biggest surprise for me in Miami is how inept their offense has looked. They have all these legendary tools that none of them they're toys that don't work together. They don't function, and that's very bizarre to see. So yeah, I'm very intrigued to see if they can pull out of that. But right now, it does not look very hopeful there. I would sit them as well behind the Jets in mediocre at best. They seem to be playing right into your I'm going to call it prediction of that they may and others that they may be heading in a downward spiral here. So hopefully they can pull it out. But right now, I think that's where they are. Yeah. They're certainly not young and intriguing. So
no, they're intriguing, but not young anymore.
Yes.
They're still on the verge. I still think that if they get to like 1-5 or something like that, they really start selling the house. It may be before that. Yes. He may be the first coach fired. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be Brian Daboll with the Giants, but he's actually they've played fairly well. They played great in week 2, still a loss, but they played really well. But anyway, so this will be quite interesting. And the Jets. I kind of feel like the Jets need a really bad defense to play against for them to have a chance. But like even an average defense, I'm not sure that they're going to they need the right matchup kind of a thing. So yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. So as long as I already got you doing it, why don't you give me the AFC South next? I'll go when you're ready.
Let's see. I think Indy has looked pretty good. Pretty good. It's hard to argue with their differential is like 30 points or 25 points. It's hard to complain. They're good on both sides of the ball. They don't seem to get rattled by anything. It's hard not to see them as a solid playoff team. Maybe something beyond that, but I think right now that's where I'm comfortable is putting them in playoff team. Very interesting to see how solid they have looked and where that's going to go going forward. So I think that's pretty straightforward to me. Then there's Jacksonville. Jacksonville, I think has looked much stronger than I had. I don't know. Expected is probably the wrong word. I know they're 1-1. It's like, well, how bad did you think they were going to be? It's not so much that, but I think they've had moments where they looked really good. I think their defense has performed better than I had expected. I still don't know that I think that they're ready to challenge for the playoffs per se in a wild card sense. But I don't know if they continue to take steps forward. I could see the possibility, especially if the aforementioned Bengals are injured and not able to be in that spot. Maybe they do rise up to that potential wild card. I would put them right now probably right in front of the Patriots in the just out of the playoff contention. But I think they are. I think they've put some good things in place that it seemed to be working. Then another enigma in the South, Houston. What in the world has gone on there? This is a team that I think when we talked before, we had them as like, yeah, this is a playoff team. And maybe they still are, but they're in a concerning 0-2 right now. And they don't know how to score points anymore. So that's very, very interesting to see and concerning. So we'll see how they come back out. Right now, I'd have to put them in the missing playoff kind of category. What's that? Say again?
Did you say that was Houston?
Yeah, it's Houston.
Sorry.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
Until they get their things, and this is another one where last week I wouldn't have been this concerned, but now I'm more concerned, just with how they played so far. And then there's Tennessee. Oh, Cam. They've had a rough start to it, obviously. They're 0-2. Offense obviously hasn't figured everything out. I still like a lot of things on this young team, but I think that's what they are. Is they're young and intriguing at this point. I'm kind of, I don't know if I'm hoping for them necessarily that they're not in that number one pick contention, but I kind of feel like they're a step above it, that they're a step above Cleveland there. Is a positive, I think. So we'll kind of go from there. What about you? I find this to be an odd quandary of a division right now. Would you agree with that? Where would you put some of these teams? Because I think Houston in particular is quite a quandary.
Yeah, well, Houston looks like they're suffering from the most predictable problem going into the offseason. It's like, oh, you had offensive line problems and you gave away your best offensive lineman.
Yeah.
And you thought things would just get better. And I still think CJ Stroud's great. I really like their receivers, but in some ways they're like Cincinnati minus on offense, where they're just like, what's an offensive line? We can line up any old guy. He's 300 pounds. Yeah, come on in. They could sign me, right? And then, no, don't do that. You'd be dead. But they do seem to have neglected the offensive trenches, which is strange because they've spent so much time and effort nailing the defensive side of the ball. So I right now it looks like their problem is exactly there. But we'll see. We'll see how it stabilizes through the year. Maybe a bit more playtime with this unit. We'll build some cohesion. We'll see. The Titans, I think you nailed it. They are kind of young and intriguing. Last year, I seem to recall they started out kind of this way, where they contended with some teams. Like they stayed in. Their defense kind of kept them in. But then through the course of the year, that kind of gave way. So, but I'd say that's still right where they are. I kind of like a little bit of what I've seen from Cam Ward. He has not been given a whole lot to work with. But I think that might keep them out of number one pick. If they can play like this, they will steal a few wins. And their division is not exactly dominating. So as much as the Colts are playing super well right now, and that's the Colts are one of the most fun teams in the NFL at the moment. Indiana Jones, it's really fun what they're doing. Jonathan Taylor looks like Saquon Barkley from last year. We'll see what they can. We'll see what they can really do. But we'll see what they can do.
Well, why don't you take us over into the NFC and tell us what's going on there?
Well, before I do that, we still got AFC West, but I will go NFC after that.
Sorry, I jumped in too fast.
Yeah, I'm excited for the NFC myself. But AFC West, we must talk about the Chiefs at some point. The Chiefs are struggling. Their offense is kind of struggling where we thought it would, except they seem to have lost some clutch factor. Last year they talked about extensively how they went like 11-0 in one-score games, and it's not going that way this year. So I don't think they're not going to go 0-11 in one-score games either. They are still absolutely a playoff team. They have the makings to be a Super Bowl contender and even favorite because they've still got Patrick Mahomes. They still have that great defense. Like they have a lot going on, but the offense in particular right now is not carrying their own weight. So I think they'll get back up there, but for the moment, I have to have them down and just like they'll probably make the playoffs. Maybe they're a wild card team technically. Maybe the Chargers or whoever win the actual division, but they should still be a playoff team. I got to go with them until proven otherwise. It just seems like a prudent bet. Denver had a really disappointing loss to Indiana Jones, but they're still right here. That defense of theirs, it stumbled a bit, but the Colts took their chances and it came up heads a lot. So I do think Denver will still make the playoffs. Bo Nix started out last year kind of slow and then really found his footing. I had thought maybe it was just rookie nerves or rookie speed of the game kind of him adjusting to, but maybe it's just a slow starting team. But I think as they get the offense rolling a bit, they'll really take off. So we'll see what's going on there. I'm actually high on this team. I'm annoyed with Amari and Hampton, but I'm very high on this team. I think their defense is just as good or better than it was last year. We'll see about the Khalil Mack thing. I can't remember exactly what he left the game with, but as old as he is as a player, he's a big part of that defense. But I think that they're the Super Bowl contender coming out of this division right this second. And we'll see through the year if they can sustain that. So, yeah, and then the Raiders. The Raiders. It's weird. The young but intriguing category seems like it's really low, but really it's kind of like you're just a lot of unknowns. So not everything is working yet. Geno Smith's the offensive line isn't protecting them particularly well. I like a lot of what they're doing. They're not a bad team. If you're thinking of this as like best to worst, like that's mostly accurate, except for this category right here, which is just I'm not entirely sure what these teams are yet because it's so different than what they were last year. They're super fun to watch. They might somehow make the playoffs. It'll be hard in a stacked AFC West, but I think young but intriguing, not necessarily in player age even so much as like the build of the team is very new. Everything's new and it's coming together. So I'm interested to see what they do, but I don't see them as a playoff team quite yet. I do think that they could get to 7 or 8 wins this year. So, they might be up in one of these kind of categories, but young but intriguing is just too right for them. They're clearly building around guys like Ashton Janty. And Brock Bowers. It should be really fun. So, but for now, they seem like they have some work to do. So, I guess we'll jump right into the NFC with the North. Get started there. I had thought coming into the season this might be the best division in football, but the Bears don't seem to have taken the step that I had kind of honestly hoped that they would take. Now they're not. I don't think they're terrible, but they're also not. It's weird. They're not all that intriguing. So I don't feel like they even belong there. I kind of feel like mediocre, but at best is where they belong right now. They have been in a couple of games, but they're still at that. I don't know if you want to call it they're finding ways to lose or they're not adequately finding ways to win yet. Like they're not that extra step that some coaches and players talk about where it's, you just figure out, oh, this is what you got to do to win games. And so they don't seem to have that quite yet. So we'll see if they figure it out. Minnesota. I've lost some faith in J.J. McCarthy. When I really step back and look at it, he has played 8 quarters and 6 of them were terrible. So he's not a rookie, but he's kind of like a rookie. So I'm trying to give him some room for this year, but I got to put him here. I'll put him in front of the Bears just slightly. I don't know that I even mean that, but until I see him really put it together, probably for at least a couple of weeks in a row, and I don't mean be perfect MVP kind of form, but just be solid a couple of weeks, I'd probably have to keep it down here. Long term, this still might be the best move over Sam Darnold. We'll see. I'm not trying to tell them that they were wrong, but it may have a cost initially. So we'll see how that goes. And then we have an interesting one here. I'm trying to take my time with the Packers, but at least their defense looks like this. Most people probably have them in favorites. I need to see a little bit more before I push a newcomer into that category, and they're a newcomer. Same with Detroit. I'd probably have Detroit up here. You can put one in front of the other. Doesn't really matter to me. Whatever. I think that Green Bay is playing slightly better than Detroit right now. And if I really had to put them somewhere in Super Bowl contenders, I'd probably put them up here. But I do expect them to be favorites at this point. It's just I need to see it. I need to see it actually come together against a couple of good teams with a bit of consistency. So we'll see. But yeah, what do you think? And really, I'll give you more on the last 2 divisions. So AFC West and NFC North. Would you make any big changes to either of those?
I wouldn't make big changes. I think right now, just from what we've seen in week 2, I would have probably put Green Bay as the other side of the Super Bowl favorite. That's just me. Because they did beat the Lions, and they beat Washington, And so it's really good teams, and just the way that they look, the way that everything is clicking. I feel like for Green Bay right now. I actually think that their offense could end up being even scarier at some point, but we'll have to see. But yeah, that would have been no change, and so that's a small change, not a big one. With that being said, everything else I think makes sense. Okay. I had hopes for McCarthy to kind of come in and not be 100% of what they're losing, I guess. But yeah, I think I agree with you. Is that's unfortunately where they are. I think they could be lower than this if it wasn't for how good their defense is.
Yeah, I could even put Minnesota like up here and missing playoffs like they're slightly higher than mediocre, but somewhere in here
they need to prove it. They need to prove it a little bit first. Like that offense has got to come around. So and specifically McCarthy. So,
all right, give me your NFC East. Tell me about the East.
Well, it hurts me to say, but if we're not putting Green Bay up there, I have to put the Eagles there. It really does hurt to say. I don't think the Eagles have blown me away. In many regards, I feel like the way they play has been very similar-ish to how the Chiefs play, and that they don't really play to blow people out. They just kind of play the game, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. It's obviously worked just fine for them. So yeah, I would leave them up there because they have some recent-ish proof that they belong there. So there's the Commanders to me are more interesting, only because their offense really has not been very offense-like. It's not the scary offense that they were last year, and with the additions they made this year, the idea was they're going to come in and be even more explosive, and they haven't been. Now they have played some good teams, and there's that, but with that being said, I think that's been a real unknown. Jaden Daniels has been held in check more. So we'll see if he's able to shift out of that. Their defense has also been rather extraordinarily good so far. So I expect them to snap back around here a little bit, and we'll learn a lot about them in the next 2 weeks. But for right now, I'm going to put them in missing playoff teams. I would put them at the front of that pack. And that brings up the Cowboys. And the Cowboys were a quandary last week. They're more of a quandary this week after winning against the mighty Giants. They scraped out a win against an old Russell Wilson from yonder year who threw 450 yards or something crazy. But we came out of it beat up and injured on top of that. So, yeah, we're going to need to get healthy, and we don't really have any time. So I'm still putting us in that same boat of missing playoff teams right now, but somewhere in the middle, probably right next to Jacksonville, sadly. Now, I think I could shift very quickly, but I have some concerns coming out of this week as to how quickly we can recover from some of these unfortunate moments. And then there's the Giants. On the bright side, the Giants threw up a ton of points, 37 in the loss in overtime to Dallas. But they've only have 43 points on the year. So either they're blowing people up or nothing. And so, I'm definitely not a believer in them. I think they're mediocre at best. I almost feel like that's being nice. I'd put them towards the tail end of that. Again, they have a chance to completely change my opinion in their upcoming game, but we'll see how that plays out. So that is how I see the NFC East. Any big differences there from how you view maybe the Commanders or any of that?
No, I think that's about right. The difference right now between, for me, the Commanders and Cowboys would be there's room for them to ascend if they figure out their offense a bit more. And they played Green Bay, and they played the Giants. They played two, in my opinion, pretty good defenses, although the Giants didn't look like a great defense against you. They do have a great defensive front, so I think that might have given them, tripped them up a little for week one with all the week one weirdness. So I'm trying to give them a little room, and I expect them to ascend to at least potential, probably up into playoff team. I think that's what most people are assuming, but I get the hesitation, and I think it totally makes sense. The Cowboys almost feel like with the injuries you just sustained, that they might be slightly, ever so slightly descending. We'll see how they come about. You'll have your chances to go on a run. I forget who we said you play this week. Yeah, it's not in there. But like you'll get your chances to show. And I still like a lot of what they're doing. They're more feisty than I think we anticipated them being. So they'll have a shot. But for now, I think that sounds about right. All right. So and the port,
which takes us to the South.
I guess South.
To the South, Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has come out and won their games. I think there's a lot of positives here. You know, they're rolling through, getting the job done. I feel like their offense has certainly not been what I would have hoped to have seen. There's some positive. Buka has been a contributor, and I think what that will be once the Godwin situation is all resolved is really, really exciting. But it still leaves a lot of questions for that team. I still put them as a playoff team for sure. With however that plays out, I could see this shifting towards the middle of the season, us moving them up further. Right now, I think they're more getting by in a division that's still figuring out their identity. Atlanta's had some real intrigues this last week. I think the big thing about Atlanta against the Vikings was how stifling their defense was. Now, as you already pointed out, McCarthy has on part not looked good. Not looked ready, not looked confident, whatever the right word is. And so they exploited that all day. I mean, they looked oppressive. They have given up 29 points. They did lose to the Bucks, but that was a close game. That was a very close game. So I think that they're in the potential wild card group. I think there's still plenty of things on that team to figure out as the season goes on. I'm not quite – how do I say this? I'm almost to the point where I'm sold on Penix as like, yes, he is a legitimate, ready-to-go quarterback for sure. The question is, like, how good is he really? And I'm very intrigued as the season goes on to get to answer that question and see with everybody else where he really is. And then the South kind of falls off after that. Then there's New Orleans. Similarly, there's a lot of questions there that we were trying to see how those get answered. And Carolina as well. I see these both as very similar. I think that I'm less intrigued with New Orleans, than I am with Carolina. I think Carolina has some really young and intriguing talent, so I'd put Carolina in that boat. Especially McMillan. He was really, really interesting in that game against Arizona. Although, like you pointed out, that some of that was corners being beat up already, but he looked really, really difficult to bring down. New Orleans, I'm tempted to just put them in mediocre at best at the tail end because I'm not sold on where exactly they are outside of that. I think that's where I would put them. I actually think things could get more challenging in New Orleans, and in a couple of weeks we may be putting them further down the road here. That's how I see the South. Do you see any hope for those bottom two teams, or are you more optimistic on the upper two teams?
For the upper two teams, I think we're pretty much lock and step there. I think we could see Tampa as being even better toward the end of the season. I think the Falcons might be a real. I've been impressed by what I saw from Michael Penix Jr. So that's pretty exciting. That's pretty exciting to see. I'm hoping he doesn't have a great game against us. New Orleans and Carolina, I feel like one of those teams needs to be in number one pick contention, to be honest. I think if we hadn't taken our foot off the gas, we might have beat the snot out of Carolina. But we did. Like we just did. We played that conservative game. So I'd probably put them down in number one pick right now. Because they were, through three quarters. Well, let's do that a different way. Through 7 quarters, they had scored 15 points this year, I believe. Maybe forget 3, but they're just not. It's just they're spanning the 20 to the 20 quite well, but they just don't seem to be getting in the end zone particularly well at all. So I have a feeling that's where they will end up. Maybe they figure some things out as the year goes along. They have a history of getting a little better halfway through the season, so maybe they shall. but at this point, they don't look great. So, but yeah, close enough.
All right, I think you're ready to close us out then. The NFC.
Yes, sir. So the NFC West, I still have my doubts about the Rams. I still think that Stafford's back is going to play a role in the season at some point. But I got to admit, right now, they look good. They look like they look like the Rams that people are suggesting they will be. Now, I know it was just the Titans, and they weren't exactly prolific on offense against the Texans, but the Texans have one of the best defenses in the NFL. They'll get a really good chance this coming week against the Eagles. That would be a great test for them. But at the very least right now, I have to put them in playoff teams. Now, where in playoff teams, you debate amongst yourselves. I don't know that I go quite as high as Super Bowl contenders. Some people think that that's absolutely what they are. Their defense is playing mostly well. But, again, they did allow a little bit of, they allowed Tennessee to stay in that game. So I still have lingering doubts about them. You can call it bias. It's perfectly fine. But they'll get a great chance. If they beat the Eagles next week, I'm going to move them up pretty dramatically. So, so we'll see. But San Francisco. Now, San Francisco is probably going to go, whoops, that's not San Francisco. Probably going to go right about here. But I need more time with Mac Jones to see how that's going to affect the next few games. We don't know exactly how long Brock Purdy's going to be out. They play us this week, which will be a big game for both teams. And just to jump ahead, I probably put us right here next to them. And the winner of this game, guess what? They're probably going to move up or down. So that's just how that's going to go. And really, the NFC West to me hasn't changed very much from kind of how we picked it early on a couple of months ago, where most of the teams look solid. I wanted to be higher on my Cardinals this year, but their offense has not really impressed me yet. The defense looks better, but the offense has been stagnant. So we'll see if they find their way. They've got some time. It's only week 2, or just past week 2. So, and sadly, I have my doubts about Seattle. Their defense looks great. My guess would be that they'll just miss the playoffs, but I do think that they could figure some stuff out too. So I'll put us all 3 in potential wild cards. That doesn't mean we're all making the wild card, but that that there's still a shot there. And again, you can put them behind us or in front of us or in front of San Francisco. It really doesn't matter. But all about the same at this point. Yeah, they're going to get their shot. So. What do you think? Will you change any of that? See it a little different?
No, it's a funny division so far, just because it is a good division. Y'all are a very good division, and all the defenses have really shown up. I feel like already, and everybody's played. I don't know about similar. I do think Seattle's had the hardest first 2 games coming in.
Yep.
But I think everybody's played like kind of one good team that we know is pretty good and one team that's like figuring things out. And so it's very comparable. And the point differentials between those teams are not big, right? Like y'all are tied for most points scored. And as you pointed out, that's how you feel like Arizona's offense has been kind of means like all the other ones have been kind of on par as well.
Yeah.
And then similarly on defense, I think the Rams defense has overachieved a bit. But I think, as you were pointing out, all of the offenses are probably underachieving. So, I think this could go anywhere. The next few weeks are going to be really interesting. I think the next 4 games for the Rams, for instance, we'll know everything about them because they play. I don't even remember who all they play a lot of high-end teams. You point out the Eagles, but I think they play Baltimore in there, Indianapolis maybe. Yeah, I mean they have a rough schedule these next few weeks. So. If they come out of that 6-0, good grief, that would be wild. So, but yeah, no, I think this is good. I think there's a lot of excitement in that division for who can go up and down in this, and it's going to be an ugly fight in that division. I'm pretty sure. Yeah,
it should be fun. So, I mean, some of it'll be fun. Some of it inevitably won't. But all right. So. We're going to save that, and then next week we will adjust off of this. So we'll use this as the baseline and just address like who's moved and who hasn't moved and things like that. So we will get into this again next week. But On that note, I'm going to wrap things up. We're trying to get to 100 subscribers. That's kind of our next big milestone. We appreciate everyone who's already subscribed. Thank you so much. And anyone new, if you're willing to join us again and tell us how silly we are for thinking anything about anything, we welcome all of those conversations. So let us know what you think. Who are we underestimating? Who are we over suggesting? Whatever. Just let us know. Hope you have a fantastic day and week, and we will see you all next